Hello and welcome to today's coaching Q&A session. I'm Wendy Greer with Learning Strategies and MINDTRX. I'm going to speak briefly about one of the possible permutations of your experience with paraliminals, and then we have a lot of questions this time, so that is just wonderful. I'm thrilled about that. So basically, I wanted to address the issue of self-sabotage. When somebody is shooting themselves in the foot a lot, when they're really this can be in a particular area, it can be more broad scope. When they're sabotaging themselves, they seem to keep doing things that are counterproductive. They seem to keep sort of going down a road that isn't conducive to what they are saying they want to achieve. There's one of a couple things usually happening. One of them is there's a values misalignment. So what they are seeking to do is not actually aligned with what they value. They were told something at an early age that they would be really good at math, and so they're following a math curriculum when they actually are drawn to art. The family has always had MDs in it, so it's assumed you're going to go to medical school and be an MD. You're a woman and you're supposed to be a teacher. All the women in the family are teachers. So there's this predisposition, and so people try to fulfill that. And when they keep bumping their head against the wall, walking into a wall, is the fact that they don't truly value what they're trying to do, and their other than conscious mind and their higher self, or whatever you want to call it, is telling them, it's not serving you. It's not what you're here to do. So that's one thing. The other, which is far more is challenging to ferret out because it can be so insidious, is a deep core belief that's flawed, that has never been examined for veracity as a grown-up. It's really been intriguing for me because I've been coaching these for many years, and I can probably count on one hand the number that have been absorbed or integrated in even the teen years or the young adult years. All the rest of them have been when somebody was almost barely verbal, that there was a family supposition that was passed down, and it was reiterated and reverbalized and reinforced over and over and over. And so it becomes part of what you are. And the challenge is that if it's something that doesn't serve, or that a child finds to be hurtful, or that is somehow something that they can't deal with, they sweep it under the rug, and it's out of sight, out of mind. And so one of the examples I've used earlier was Dave, who was a lay minister, and anything to do with finances, he could find a way to make it not happen. And it just astounded me because he was very articulate, very charismatic. He was seemed so on the ball, but he if it came to finances, if there was a deal to be made or a meeting he needed to go to, or something he needed to follow through on, he would not do it. And what we finally found with him was he had been raised from early childhood, from his grandfather and then his parents and his uncles and aunts, that you cannot be godly and have money. He was a lay minister. So his primary focus of his life was being of service, of connecting people with their divinity, of really bringing them to an understanding that we're all sparks off the divine flame and you are it too. So for him, that was a huge paradox, because being godly was his primary focus, his purpose for being here. And if the money couldn't gel with that, that was a major issue. And so when we examined that with grown-up resources, what he came to realize was that having money, in fact, would enable him to do more of God's work, because his outreach would be greater. He'd be able to do more to be of service, to inculcate the values and the attitudes that he wanted young people to grow up with. So that was a huge breakthrough for him. So the question then is, of course, how to ferret out these things that are being assumed. Well, generally, I tell people to look at how it's manifesting. If it's in a particular area of life, like it was with Dave, then you're going to look at what is your attitude about finance. What did your family say about having money? What's the historical reference point? So where in your life did it show up in a similar way? And do you have any sense of why that might be? So that was what we looked at with him. And the other thing that we did, and this is a key factor for Paraliminals, one of the reasons I love them so much, you can build into your primary intention. So his intention was he wanted to be in the flow. He wanted to have an abundance of monetary remuneration so that he could put it back into his work, his ministry. but he built into that intention, and I think he was, I don't even remember. I think he was using prosperity. Wealth motivator wasn't out then, so it was probably living the law of attraction. He built into that, if there is a reason that I am sabotaging myself, I'd really like some clarity, because I'm puzzled. I don't understand what's going on here. I'm not clear what is going on, why I keep doing this, and it just isn't serving me. It isn't serving what I'm here to do. And so when he built that in, of course, you're going directly to your other than conscious mind, which is all your memories, all your wisdom, all your inner knowing, all your connection to source. So from that perspective, to ask that question, his other than conscious knew what he was looking for, and it started presenting answers, and we put the puzzle together. So so I think one of the things I'd like to mention is when you set your goal and you are stating it, and if you have any yes buts come up, those are your limiting beliefs. So those are what you're going to want to look at. What are those representative of? Where did those originate? What was the derivation of those? Because if you can get a handle on that, then you can move forward. One of the most extreme examples of this I have seen was a gentleman I'll call Brian. I would guess he was probably late 20s, early 30s. World was his oyster, a really high-powered job in a financial institution, had met the love of his life. But he kept doing crazy things. He'd miss meetings. He wouldn't make it to a date on time, and then they'd have a fight over something ridiculous, and he couldn't apologize. It just was one thing after another. And so what we started doing was we would look at where it was manifesting. So positive relationships. I want a positive, meaningful relationship with this woman that seems to be my soulmate. I seem to be sabotaging. What is going on here? Why am I doing this? For work, he was using, again, probably, I think it was probably abundant money mindset and prosperity. Or living the law of attraction, maybe. I seem to be having an issue with finances. Why am I doing this? Well, what we got at with him was he came from a house where it was repeated over and over and over that he would never be as clever as his dad was, as smart as his dad was. He'd never be able to generate the finances his dad could. He would never have the great rapport with people his dad had. And this was, again, from the earliest memories. He remembered this, as a toddler. And the other side of this that made it a double whammy was his dad had a very volatile temper. And if you disagreed with him, or you did something that conflicted, or you challenged him, you might find yourself hitting the wall on the other side of the room. So not only was it that he was bucking the system, but it was bloody dangerous in his house to contradict his dad. So what was happening was he had internalized this, forgotten about it, and then he's making it, he's living what he created in his toddlerhood and into his, preteens and teens and then adulthood. He was reliving, I can't be, that's just not done. You can't do that. That's dangerous. So what we started doing, one of the tools that I like a lot for this is testing whatever it is that you find is the core belief for veracity. And I love Byron Katie's inquiry process. The questions to ask yourself are, is this true? Yes or no. So for some people, it's yeah, I think it might be. Do you absolutely positively know it to be true? Well, no, I'm not positive. Who would you be without that thought? And so who would you be without that thought? You'd be free. You'd be able to step into your power. You'd be able to shift the way you orient to the world and the people in it. And then the fourth question is the turnaround. What's the turnaround? What's the reverse? So for him, it could have been, I can stand on my dad's shoulders. He was a financial wizard. He did really well. He provided really well. I can stand on those shoulders and do it even better. And he'd be so proud of me for doing that. Could be that he had an ego issue, and I'm so sorry for him, and I have compassion for him, but I choose a different way. I've learned, and you can learn a lot from the people you don't want to emulate. I choose to do it differently. So the turnaround often is, I've actually had people break down when they do the turnaround, because they recognize there are an infinite number of other ways to approach this, and they got locked into this one limiting, boxed in, contracted, depressing, non-resourceful state. And all of a sudden it loosens, it lets go, and the sky's the limit. World is your oyster. the world. The oyster has the pearl, and the world is your oyster. You can pull as many oysters as you want and get as many pearls as you want. So it's really a great setup, isn't it? For self-sabotage, one of the Paraliminals I really like is the new history generator. Any of the generators are good, but new history generator, once you sort of have a feeling for what you might be, what's system you've internalized, and what belief system, what feelings you've internalized, you can take them to new action, new behavior, new history, and the new option generator. So those are the ones I would definitely choose for that. And again, if you're finding this is manifesting in a particular area, pick something, a paraliminal that would apply to that. So, if you you're working on your health and you keep sabotaging your health, then maybe perfect health or youthful vitality. Give me some clarity on why I'm doing this. Well, what's up here? What's going on here? Because this isn't serving me, and this is not the road I want to be following. Why do I keep doing this? Because your other than conscious, it knows, and it's just been waiting for you to ask. And when you are clear on what you want, it will step up to the plate big time. I mean, that's why Paraliminals are so great, because you're aligning with this incredible power. So that's my spiel for today. And now we're going to move to the questions. Now, some of these have to do with the challenge we're doing right now. So I'm going to answer those. I got some technical answers for those, so we'll start with that. Can I use MINDTRX on my computer? No, presently MINDTRX can only be used on mobile phones. So is there a way to get Paraliminals on my computer? Yes, you can go to the paraliminal.com, where you can purchase individual Paraliminals, and you'll see the entire list and the subtitles, and then you can pick the ones that are most applicable to, whatever you're wanting to generate in your life. Do you have to be present on the live stream each day for a chance to win? No, you do not have to be present each day. You're automatically entered. Are these sessions recorded for review at a later time? The MINDTRX live stream sessions are available for 24 hours. The Q&A recordings I've been doing will be available in a few hours, and you can find them on the past Q&A events section on the app's homepage. And something slick that they've added is any Paraliminals that were pertinent to questions that were asked there, or what we discussed, they're listed below, so you can go directly to them. So that's really nice, nice immediate access point. And then we are getting into more of the, again, utilization. So can I listen to my sleep tracks while I'm active and running errands? Yes, but do not listen to the sleep tracks while driving or using heavy equipment. I think I get better results. I don't know if Pete would agree with this, but I think I do better if I have dedicated time, because I can really get deep. Now, I have had people who do road activities like vacuuming. I have a lady who vacuums listening to Paraliminals, says she gets great results. So, it's each to their own. So just see how you do with that. But remember, though, that Paul's mellifluous voice, you can get pretty zoned out pretty quickly. So don't do it if you're operating a motorized vehicle or anything where you really need to be aware of what's going on around you. Does the Paraliminal work if you fall asleep while listening? It absolutely does. And that's one of the reasons the sleep tracks are so powerful, because when you fall asleep, your conscious mind steps aside, and that's when you're accessing the other than conscious. And as I said, seat of all your wisdom, all your memories, all your connection to source. It's just a force to be reckoned with. So yes, that is. And what's really interesting is how often I'll ask people, well, how long did you sleep? Well, I woke up when Paul was doing the count out. Some of those people, I think, weren't actually sleeping. They just were really, really deep into the paraliminal change work. And so they were processing at a very deep level. And then when Paul counted them out, they came back. So I believe that's probably what happens with a lot of people. Is it best to listen to the same recording each day or switch them every day? I've been taught that repetition is fundamental in creating the new neural pathway. There's a lot of truth to that. I know that used to be 21 days to instill a new belief, a new habit, a new way of approaching things. Paraliminals are so organic. I mean, I've had a couple people within one or two listenings shift a long time pattern. So I don't think there's a cookie cutter answer to that. I do like the thought of doing them at the same time. And the reason I like that is because I'm a long time meditator, and I find that I have a cushion in my room. If I do it, even just walking into that room and seeing the cushion, I'm already sort of dropping in. I'm already sort of settling into what I'm doing. So I think there's some benefit to doing the same one. But that being said, like I say, that they're so organic. It's hard to give a firm answer to that. I would pay attention to your results. If you feel like you're still processing, you're getting ahas, you're coming out with new insights, you're feeling more on track, then that's probably a good way to go. What I do like about involving other ones is you can come from different perspectives. You have something in your library called the Paraliminal Accelerator, and we created that because people wanted to be using multiple paraliminals for the same challenge. And so what people were doing was calling me and telling me about the results they were getting with a paraliminal we would never have chosen. I mean, I would never have picked the paraliminal they were using, but it came from a different perspective, so they got new insights. And sometimes it's it's like all the tumblers in a lock, little bit each time, and then finally the lock opens and you've released it, you stepped into it. So I know that's a bit of a nebulous answer, and I'm sort of a rubber hits the road person, but pay attention to your results. It may be you'll do better with a single one. It may be better that you would bring in a few different perspectives to get a fuller picture. Next question is similar. How many paraliminals is it optimal to use each day? And is it best to focus on, say, one and then do the optimum times per day, or choose a few and do those each day? Again, no optimal. I would say this, though. It's really funny when somebody buys the entire library, it's like there's this glut of self-improvement. And I can always tell somebody who's using a lot of them a day, because they call and their energy's a little chaotic and they're sort of frantic. I think you can overuse paraliminals, and I think the way you can tell is when you sit down to do a paraliminal, you're either feeling anxious, you're ticked, I can't believe I'm doing this again. I mean, why am I doing this? This is a waste of time. I think what's happening is you're overdoing it. You're not giving the change work time to settle in. And so you need to allow, people are using paraliminals for things that have been in their family for generations. I sometimes think they're shifting family patterns. And so it takes a while, it's going to take a while to shift that. So don't get impatient. Just use what seems conducive to whatever you're working on. And pay attention to how you feel when you sit down. If you're getting anxious, antsy, angry, depressed when you sit down, you're probably overusing, so back it down. And on a similar, slight tangent, but I find it's great to have multiple. I'm thrilled when people know what they want in a lot of different aspects of life, but pick one or two that are highest priority. And I generally suggest either, because it's most immediate, like if you're going to lose your house because you can't pay your mortgage because of your finances, then financial is probably going to be pretty high on the list. Or pick one that if you get that, there's a domino effect and all the others will start falling into place. Because often what I see as a coach here is somebody's working on, say they're working on their relationships, and all of a sudden their financial situation turns, and they're right on the money with predictions they make if they're a broker or a stockbroker. They're just, it's like when you're working on one, you're moving all of them forward. So I'm never surprised when I hear that, but it's still sometimes it's a treat to get those calls because I love them. What is the significance to listening without your thumbs touching? Look at the body language of it. When you see somebody at an event like this and they're like that, they're sort of closed down. If they're sort of open and they're available, they're there to absorb what's going on. The thumbs touching, one of the things in meditation, when you've centered and you're sort of you settled into your body and you're feeling connected to source, you can close the circuits actually by closing your fingers. But what you want with paraliminals, because you're working with something you're wanting to shift or engender, you want to be available to the resources. And so it's just a way of sort of representing physiologically the open state you want to be in to get maximum benefit. Because if you're open, you're available, it's almost like a message to the universe and to your other than conscious. I'm here, I'm listening, I'm available. Share, please, fill me in, give me the goodies. I'm ready. So that's that one. Is it ineffective to listen to many Paraliminals in one day? We've already addressed that. I understand the ultimate situation is to lie or sit in an undisturbed manner. Can you reap benefits while doing something else? Absolutely. Specifically something rote. Getting dressed in the morning, getting ready for bed in the evening. You know, those I wouldn't think would be conducive to getting as deep as you would if it was more of a repetitive activity, but try it and see. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if some people do well with that. Can you get any benefit from listening without headphones? Absolutely. Used to be that we had a lot of people that didn't even own a set of headsets, and so they put their heads between the speakers. The tracks are laid down in both for both hemispheres, so it's just more dominant in one than the other. So I've heard some really good results. I've heard really great reports from people with either hearing impairment in one ear or hearing complete loss in one ear, and they still benefit. So absolutely, you can definitely get the benefit without the headphones. I think, you know, for me, headphones are, I'm less distractible, you know, particularly if you're, you know, obviously in an area where there's outside noises or traffic or whatever. And also, I think the headphones, it takes you inside a little more effectively, maybe, but there's no reason you can't do it without. So, for the Paraliminals that say to listen to them once a day for a week, can we mix them with others, or will that reduce the effectiveness? Absolutely not. Absolutely, I'm sorry. Absolutely, you can mix it, and absolutely not. It wouldn't reduce the effectiveness. Again, it's quantity and frequency. Pay attention. You know, I love mixing it up. So sometimes I will even like if I want to work on something and I'm feeling like I've got I'm carrying some baggage, I will use letting go or fresh start before I go to the Paraliminal I'm actually selecting that I was going to use. So sometimes you can actually play them off each other like that. So that would be another thing to consider. But yeah, multiples is great. As I said, more than 2 goals at a time, people get too diversified and they don't do anything well. So, you know, pick a couple that are priority, and, you know, let those sort of get down the road a ways with those before you bring another one in. But yeah, no problem there. How to tell that Paraliminals are making a difference and how quickly will change be seen? I love the way people think. It's a process. It's not an on-off switch. It's a dance. I've shared that before. I love that saying, you know, the change doesn't happen as a result of flipping a switch. It's a dance. So there's been some times where 1 or 2 listings will totally shift a perspective. Other times it is a process. It's an unfolding. It's an enabling. It's an opening to the possibility. And when you think of how long we've been stuck, you know, we need to be a little patient with how that it might take a few listings to actually shift things. How will you tell that it makes a difference? That's one of the reasons, one of the sessions I want to do is on journaling. Some people don't recognize the shifts that are happening with Paraliminals. I've had a couple people that were quite challenging to work with because they were very negative and abrasive, and they couldn't remember at the first call, and they were telling me they weren't working. And I actually had one guy where I reminded him of the first call because I could remember, because I could feel the chip on his shoulder and down the phone. And it was like, oh my goodness. But when I reminded him of that first call, he goes, oh, you're right. Yeah, you are right. I am changing. I am changing. So it's generally, it's a loosening, it's an opening, it's a shifting. It may be that something that would normally get your goat happens and it just rolls off. I mean, it can manifest in all kinds of different ways. So pay attention to what's going on. Do more of what's working. More of that, please. You know, let your other unconscious know, hey, that I handle that really well. Please, more of that. I'd like more of that, please. More. So that's my take on that. How do you focus on a business when ADHD seems to control your decision-making skills? I would probably, now, one thing I'd like to say here, I've worked with some parents of kids with ADHD and autism and some of the other spectrum disorders using Paraliminals. And because you're working with your other than conscious mind, Paraliminals can have a huge impact on how excessive the ADHD will be. I mean, it's a situation that's going to continue to be there. And those are often the people that are so creative and so energetic and dynamic that it's almost like you need to look at the gift in it, but you need to sort of tone it down. You need to channel it a little bit. So a couple things that have helped people that I have coached: focus and concentration, because that's it's about focal pointed thinking when you need to have focal pointed thinking, and that way you're zeroed in when you need to be zeroed in, but you let the way you operate coexist, but you're sort of channeling it. You're putting some banks adjacent to the torrent of the ADHD, and you're giving it a channel to go down. Deep relaxation can be phenomenal. And another one that I've had people do really well with, which when I thought about it later, it made sense, is 10-minute supercharger. Because if you are supercharging, that you want to be focal, you want to be focused, you want to hone in, you want that energy to be, instead of being diffused all over, you want it to be pointed or routed in a certain direction. 10-minute supercharger can be effective. So try those and see where it goes. And also build in that intention into anything you're using for your business. If you're doing the wealth motivator, and please help me to modulate the behavior in a way that's conducive to my stated intention, which is, because your other unconscious will help you out. So what are some key steps I can take to maintain a healthy mindset and consistency that allows me to live a healthy, happy, live and love a healthy, happy, and abundant lifestyle in all areas of my life? I'm going to take my Paraliminal hat off for just a sec. Anything that you do as a discipline that you do regularly will enhance that, because it's like you're accessing your worthiness, you're accessing your commitment to yourself. It's almost like you're making a contract with yourself. And so in that context, schedule your Paraliminals regularly. Regularly say, okay, I'm committing to, in the morning, I'm going to do something to set my day up. Midday, if I'm feeling frazzled or off track, I'm going to take the time. And at night, I'm going to do a review, see what worked, what didn't. I'm going to know what's working, and I'm going to, continue to seek that balance. And tell your other than conscious before you do the Paraliminals, I'm seeking balance, and body, mind, and spirit, health, success, spiritual connection, relationships, whatever it is. So there's a lot. I mean, almost any Paraliminal could be used for that. You might try the self-discipline, because self-discipline will help you to sort of establish that routine where you're saying, I am worthy of taking the time. I am going to be disciplined in my being balanced, in my being harmonious, in my being clear, in my being still when I need to be. So you might try the self-discipline. And then, as I've stated earlier, prosperity in all areas. Prosperity is a workhorse. You can use it for prosperity in finances, can be vitality and prosperous in health. It can be in spiritual connection, can be in education and growth and qualities you're trying to engender. So prosperity would be good. That's just a couple thoughts, but always go through the Paraliminals, look at the subtitles, because it'd be so helpful. Oh, and you know what else I wanted to mention, since so many questions had which one. There's a Paraliminal Accelerator in the MINDTRX, and we have a topics list. Those of us that use Paraliminals a lot put our heads together, and we created a list of what we thought would be helpful. So academic improvement, personal genius, memory supercharger, self-esteem supercharger, and self-discipline. So these were sort of the ones that were consistently yielding great results in the areas, and we broke out a whole bunch of different areas on pages 131 through 137 of your Accelerator manual. So that's a great tool. So use that too. But if you have a gut feeling about a Paraliminal, go for it. Because if somebody wants to use one that I would not have chosen, I do not any longer say, I think you might do better with. I'll say you might also try. But sometimes people pick a Paraliminal I wouldn't have selected, and bang on. So we're far wiser than we give ourselves credit for, and I acknowledge that regularly. Okay. Okay, these last two are related. Why did I just sabotage myself and lose money in a scam online job? I am devastated. I am such a fool. My hackles went up when I read that. You are not a fool. What you put after I am creates the world that you perceive, and that it will create your world. you are not a fool. It was a learning experience. Take the learning, move forward. You are not a fool. You know, one of the things I loved, Thomas Edison supposedly, I think it was almost 1,000 experiments till he could find the right filament for his light bulb. And I think it was a reporter asked him, how did it feel to have failed 1,000 times? He goes, it didn't fail. It was a 1,000-step process. And I thought, what a healthy attitude that is. So you happen to have that experience so that you will not do that again, that you are wary now. Take the learning, run with it, and do not beat yourself up. And I am, you know, change. I am such a fool too. I am learning to be wary. There are some people that aren't ethical. I am learning. I am now aware that I need to, you know, and you know what? Hats off to you that you trusted somebody, because there's a lot of distrust in the world right now. So you just need to be a little more discriminating in who you trust. And you know, trustworthiness is sometimes a little hard, challenging to find. So you give yourself a pat on the back that you're acknowledging it was a mistake. You're going to learn from it, and you won't be repeating it. So that's how we grow. So there you go. And what paraliminals do you suggest for breaking a cycle of running away from opportunities, quitting for fear of failure due to a failed business years ago? Well, that goes back to our topic of self-sabotage. Check for values alignment, and check for some deep-seated doubts about your capacities or your the safety of doing what you're looking to do. You know, the generators are always good for stuck states. Belief is a workhorse, because if you think you can or you think you can't, you're going to be right. And it sounds like you're sort of assuming that the past is equaling the present, which will equal the future. Not the case. Every moment is fresh start. Every moment is an opportunity for a fresh start. Fresh start we did with Bill Harris, and so that would be a good one for you. Letting go for both of those last two questions. Let go of the perceptions. You know, welcome the growth, welcome the learning, and move on. Don't beat yourself up. Self-esteem supercharger. This one, there's so many. Fearlessness would be good. That's one of our newer ones. And abundant money mindset, maybe, because it sounds like it's the in the financial area that you're looking. It sounds, well, maybe not, but abundant money mindset, if it is finances that you're looking at. And our final one I love, how can I find my life vision to serve the world? I love it. I'm still waiting for some serious feedback on self-actualization. That's one of the most recent releases we have. I would probably take a look at that, but I can tell you one I've had some amazing results with, and I think it's one of the more underutilized paraliminals, and it's Success Built to Last. We did it with Stuart Emery. His basic premise is whatever you are passionate about is what you're here to do and what you're going to do well. And Success Built to Last, the subtitle for that is Create a Life That Matters. And so for you, a life that matters would be a life of purpose. I remember somebody sent me a saying once that ideally you find what you love to do so much that you would do it at no charge and you get paid well for doing it. And that's what you're here to do. That's what you're passionate about. So Success Built to Last. I mean, there's a lot that you could use. You might try, you know, if you're really stuck, Intuition Amplifier is good for sort of tuning into what you might be good at. That might be a good one. But try the Self-Actualization. Give us some feedback. I want to know, because I'm thinking that's going to be really good for that kind of conundrum. But I've had almost no feedback on that one, so I'd like to hear. You know, another really great exercise, and this is again not paraliminal, but Jack Canfield has what he calls a life purpose exercise, and you make a list of qualities that you have that you think you're really good at. Like, I'm very dynamic, I'm very compassionate, I'm very logical, I'm very practical, I'm very I see things sequentially very well. And make a list of all those and pick a couple of them that you think are probably some of your really, really strong points. And then how would that look if you were to express that in the world? Because that sort of shakes things up. You have this whole list of qualities you have. You pull out a couple that you think are the strongest for you, and then you would take those forward. I want to share this story because it tells you how where just a simple thing like that can take you. He had a guy who did his Success Built to Last, his Success Principles workshop, who was a bus driver in a metropolitan area. And the guy had always wanted to be a stand-up comic, but he got married young and had multiple children. And so he didn't feel he could give up his day job. Well, what he recognized as a result of doing this was that he had a great sense of humor and he loved connecting with people. And it suddenly put two and two together. He had a captive audience every day on his bus. So what he started doing was cracking jokes on his bus route. People stood in line in this, I think it was New York, in this metropolitan area to get on his bus. So because that was such a great start to their day. So that sort of is an example of where, you know, like I said, the success built to last, just tuning into what you're here to do, what you're passionate about, what you value, and then how would that express in the world? How might you express that? So pragmatic tool to accessorize your paraliminals, which are great in and of themselves, as you will know. So I ran a little over how long I was going to take, but they were great questions and I love to share. So that's my take on it for this time. So you have a great rest of your week. We're sending you lots of love from all of us here at Learning Strategies and MINDTRX, and we'll see you again next week. You take care. Bye.